Hello again, everybody. Gary Ferman and Matt Shodell here. And today we are talking very simply about what unquestionably will be one of the major stories of the year revolving around the University of Miami football program. And that is the acquisition through the transfer portal of quarterback Cam Ward, the universally regarded number one prospect in the portal this year, sensational quarterback out of Washington State, who now is going to be a Miami Hurricane in 2024. And Matt Shodell, to put it simply, I think getting Cam Ward changes the entire expectations for Miami football in 2024. I mean, before this, I had very modest expectations. They did not have a proven frontline quarterback. Cam Ward is a proven quarterback and a guy that can really just totally change things in the program.
Correct. Listen, I have been saying from day one that there's nobody in the portal that was anywhere close as good a fit for Miami, as talented in the portal at quarterback, which is a position Miami needed desperately on offense, as Cam Ward. This was the free agent home run they had to hit. I wasn't excited about Will Rogers. I mean, I wasn't excited even. I mean, Reese, whatever I'm not gonna say his name. I know fans tend to get excited about anybody you get because let's face it, if you look at a highlight film of anybody, they're going to look pretty good. And if the guy can run and pass a little bit, you think, oh, maybe he'll be great next year because everyone always is optimistic about things except for me. People thought Jakari was going to be great. Emory Williams was going to be great. Yeah, those guys can all be great. But Cam Ward already is great. That's what I keep trying to explain to people is the difference. Jakari should start. What's the big deal? He's not great because he hasn't shown he can be great. Cam Ward has shown he can be great. Now, what's interesting about Cam Ward, and it's really one of the strangest, it's almost like the demilitarized zone between North Korea and South Korea, with the NFL on one side and the Miami Hurricanes on the other, and Cam Ward's in the middle, and, he's not sure, he's like goes one side, goes to the other side, like he's constantly going back and forth. It was a really weird process. And usually you see this stuff in recruiting, and it's called, committing, decommitting, recommitting, decommitting. I mean, Cam Ward in his mind, if I'm to believe what I've been told by his parents, he decommitted from Miami and decommitted from the NFL about 20 different times over the last 2 weeks. Like, he really just didn't know what to do. And I think when he first made the decision to go pro, he always wanted to go pro. That wasn't a secret. But he made that announcement without being 100%. And that happens in recruiting all the time. You don't see it in the transfer portal quite as much. So it made for a really weird storyline because everything that I can gather, I talked to his parents, I talked to his trainer. So from everything I did not talk to Cam, by the way. He was on his way moving in yesterday, or actually this morning, I guess, right? They drove down this morning and we're moving in today. So everything I gleaned from them was that, when Miami would keep calling every week since January 1st, which is when he announced he was going pro, and they called 2 or 3 times since then, he would not say anything to them about, yeah, I still might go to Miami. It was always, I'm planning to go pro, but I'm having sleepless nights, I don't know, whatever. Like Miami certainly got the sense that, hey, it's not a 100% done deal, but they weren't calling him every day and hounding him for a decision. And the weirdest part is, it was Miami that called him just to check in. Their once a week check-in. Hey, what's up? Listen, we're probably pretty close to getting a quarterback. School starting next week, just checking in. I'm coming to Miami. Like, that's what happened. He didn't call them.
Pretty close to how it happened, yeah.
Usually a recruit or a prospect will call the school and say, hey, coach, I'm committing, or hey, coach, I'm coming this semester, whatever it is. So thank goodness Miami called him. I think he'd be in the NFL right now if Miami hadn't called him yesterday. That's tongue in cheek. But it's a weird way this whole thing went down. It was really odd, the whole tenor of it. And, the only thing that I think, another thing people really haven't talked about is before Miami called him, yesterday. That's when he decided. He wasn't going to commit to Miami before that. And as his mom told us, or told me, I guess, earlier today, that conversation is why he said, I'm coming to Miami. And she's not sure the details. All she, the dad said it was X's and O's. A lot of X's and O's were talked. And then when I talked to his trainer, and we'll have a story up in the morning about that. I have to write that story up. I talked to his trainer for a while. The trainer was really an interesting person to talk to because he's worked with, let me see who he's worked. He's worked with a ton of different quarterbacks. Let me just look at my notes here real quick. Yeah, so he's worked with Brock Purdy, Anthony Richardson, Nathan Peterman, Kyle Trask, Sam Ellinger. His name's Will Hewlett. And he's basically a guy who just gets quarterbacks ready for the NFL. This isn't a guy you go to when you're going back to college. And Cam Ward had worked with him last year and again this year. And what's interesting is this trainer, Will Hewlett, his son is a quarterback in the class of 2025, and he has a Miami offer from Shannon Dawson. So Will Hewlett is very familiar with Shannon Dawson, very familiar with the Miami offense. And when I was talking with Will, he said his impression and his understanding, talking with not just Cam, but talking with Shannon Dawson, is that a big highlight point for why ultimately it sounds like, and maybe I'm reading between the lines a little bit, but why Cam went back to college ultimately is he has only shown himself in a more of a pure air raid offense. And the understanding of this trainer is that Cam has been told that he will get a chance to function in more of a pro style offense at Miami, which will allow him, therefore, to move up in the draft by showing, hey, yeah, NFL teams don't run the air raid, but look what I did in a pro style offense at the University of Miami last year, which will be a year from now. That's what those X's and O's conversation, it sounds like, was about. And they managed to convince him, you will be a surefire first rounder because here's what we have, here's what we're going to do with you. And the other thing that shocked me that Will Hewlett said is he thinks Cam Ward is going to function a lot under center, which is something that Shannon Dawson very rarely does. But this is something that Cam Ward has been emphasizing with the trainer constantly now. He's worked really, really hard at being under center because in the NFL, you're under center. And I have a feeling that Miami may have capitulated a little bit with how they're going to run their offense around Cam Ward by saying, listen, this is not going to be the same air raid concepts that you've been running, even though Shannon Dawson is an air raid concept guy. With you, if that's what you need and that's what you want to be in the NFL, we will run this offense for you and make it work. And it sounds like that's what they're going to do. So whether that happens or not, I don't know, but that's what the trainer indicated that he thinks Shannon Dawson will be doing with Cam Ward, which I thought was really, really interesting. I actually think it's really, really smart because you need Cam Ward. You can't not have Cam Ward. This team was not going to be the same team without Cam Ward. The trainer also said they do, when he first got him last year, the first thing they do is they do comps. They look at height, weight, athletic ability, arm strength. They do everything. They measure everything, every aspect of you as a player, and then they find a comparable player in the NFL so that you as a player can look at that player and learn things from that player. And the comp for Cam Ward is Patrick Mahomes, which is a pretty good comp. And the trainer was quick to say, that doesn't mean he's Patrick Mahomes, But for comparison's sake, he throws from different arm angles. He already has a top tier NFL arm, according to this quarterback guru, okay? Can make every throw. The issues for Cam have more been in the consistency aspect, mechanical aspect, because Cam is I think 6'2", 221 is what he measured in it a couple of days ago, according to the trainer. And he runs like a 4.6 to 4.8 in the 40. He hasn't maxed in the 40 because that's not what they do with the trainer, but that's what he would run. So he's not the fastest guy in the world, but he moves his feet. He gets out of trouble and he makes plays with his arm. But what he doesn't really do consistently well is just sort of being a drop back passer, right? And having the proper mechanics doing that. Because what his trainer said, a big thing they're working on is a lot of times his mechanics are screwed up, but he will just sort of use his natural ability to make the play anyway. And to be in the NFL, you can't just do that. That's not how it works. So, I think Cam is not only going to be using this year at Miami to better Miami, but also to better himself. And as good as Cam Ward was last year, and he threw for 3,700 yards, 25 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, had 8 rushing touchdowns, 400 passing yards against 3 different teams. as good as he was last year, he might even be better this coming season. Yeah, Washington State's maybe not the same competition level as Miami, but Miami also surrounds him with better offensive talent. I actually think Miami's offense is going to be better than Miami's defense this year. Whereas last year, clearly the defense was better than the offense. So now the only question for next season as it pertains to the Miami Hurricanes, and I'll stop talking in about another 20 minutes, is the defense going to be good enough? Because the defense...
We're entertained.
Well, the defense...
Listen, we're excited. You could be sitting here reciting the Gettysburg Address, and like
the defense has lost more pieces than Gary Ferman has lost girlfriends when they saw his actual face instead of the profiles he had in his dating profile way back when. Because they're losing 2 defensive tackles that started.
That was weak. That was really weak. Like, what?
It's not a joke. It's the truth. They're losing 2 defensive tackles. They're losing 3 of their secondary starters, including James Williams and Cam Kinchens. And that's just tough to overcome. So, so to me now, I'm not worried about the offense. Now I'm worried about the defense. I always need something to worry about.
All right, so let's. There's a lot to unpack there, and there's a lot of subplots to this entire story, and let's talk about them a little bit. All right, so the change of the offense, phenomenal if it really happens. That's Shannon Dawson recognizing that what he was doing last year was not working, and last year he had a pure passer in Tyler Van Dyke. He doesn't have that this year. Cam Ward is a great multi-purpose athletic quarterback. Phenomenal. Cam Ward is everything that we've been saying, Ja'Cory Brown has the potential to be if he can develop the way Cam Ward has developed. And I hope Ja'Cory now even more so stays in the program, because he has a guy now that he can learn from this next year and see if he can develop into this type of quarterback who can do all these different things while he works on his throwing accuracy. So what Shannon Dawson was doing last year wasn't working, and I like that he's going to tinker with his system if that is in fact what's going to happen. And Cam Ward is the perfect guy, to do that with. There's no doubt about it. You mentioned how he's established. I mean, he averaged over 300 yards a game passing at Washington State, threw for 37-32, but was very accurate. He completed 66.7% of his throws. That's pretty damn good. He protects the football. He's a very smart guy. 25 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. That's a good thing. He ran for 8 more touchdowns in addition to the 25 touchdowns he passed for. Threw for a touchdown in every game except one. A couple games he had 4 touchdown passes. He had over 400 passing yards at Oregon. He also did it against Colorado State and Oregon State. But the thing that really impressed me, Matt, was he did it at Oregon, which is obviously one of their probably their toughest game of the year, other than Washington. So this is a guy that has done it at the top level of college football, and he is coming in with an opportunity to take ownership of this Miami offense, and possibly, if they can win, become a Heisman Trophy candidate. And he's certainly going to get an opportunity to improve his stock with the National Football League. So this is a massive win for Miami, but it's also a massive win for Cam Ward, because being the quarterback at Miami gives him a much greater platform at a much greater stage than being the quarterback at Washington State. And that's why he was in the transfer portal to begin with. So this went on for way too long. Went on for well over over a month. And there were many times along the way where it was looking like Cam Ward was ready to pull the trigger and come to Miami. And, we were covering it every step of the way. It was driving us out of our minds. We kept thinking he was going to commit, and then he wouldn't commit. And then there would be a reason he didn't commit. And then it was starting to look like they were playing everybody, that they intended to go to the National Football League all along. And they might have, except for one problem. They might have been honest about that, Matt. But there was one problem with the whole thing. He only projects as a 3rd or 4th round draft pick right now. So you can want to go to the National Football League, but if you're Cam Ward, the smart decision was to come to Miami and take the keys of quarterback give yourself that platform. and launching pad. And now you have to go make something of it. You have to be able to handle it. And then you can prove to the National Football League that maybe you're worth a little bit more than what they think you're worth right now. So this was always the right decision for him. I was mystified why it took him so long to get here. I mean, it was kind of baffling. But the whole thing about the sleepless nights and all that, he had a reason to be having sleepless nights because he was making the wrong decision.
Well, the whole NFL thing. Look, he's lost 46 fumbles in 4 years. NFL teams are not going to draft you late in the first round, which is what they thought he could get up to if he had a good workout. If you lost 46 fumbles in 4 years, that's not something that is just, that is going to make NFL teams be comfortable with you taking you as their only pick in the first round, despite his other, ability. I mean, from an NFL perspective, he would be a project. He would be a guy with huge Patrick Mahomes-like upside, but probably a guy who has to sit on the bench for 2 or 3 years to get things right mechanically, protect the ball better, and prove that he's able to function in an NFL offense. Now at Miami, in 1 year, he could hypothetically prove to NFL teams that I don't need those 2 or 3 years of development, as a backup, which would make you a 3rd or 4th rounder probably at the earliest as a quarterback. But look what I did at Miami. I can already do all the things that you questioned that I couldn't do. I can protect the ball. I can make every throw. I can, be smart with the ball, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The only issue I really have is this whole, why did it take so long? Why was he constantly going back and forth? Like the sleepless nights, whatever, you can blame it on whatever, but he's here in the end. So that's all that matters.
Well, I mean, like I said, it took him so long because it was never the right decision to go to the National Football League. But I think they had a predisposed idea going into the process that he wanted to go to the NFL. And the reason he couldn't sleep at night was because it was wrong. I mean, you don't go into the NFL to be a 4th round draft pick when you have a chance to maybe improve your stock. And he'll get a great NIL deal, so it'll be worth his while. And he'll get to improve his stock. So this was a really amazing whole situation, the way this played out. I mean, you had Baby Tua, I call him Talia. I can't pronounce his name right. I never, but Baby Tua, I'll call him, was sitting there. It has been sitting there for several days, looking at Miami, and couldn't get the NCAA to give him a waiver. So Miami's sitting there and waiting here. And then Will Rogers decommits from Washington. With Jed Fish going to Washington, I got to think he might go back to Washington now. That would be a logical move for him. But, he decommits from Washington when the coach goes to Alabama. And now he's sitting there. And he's interested in Miami again as well, because he knows Miami's looking for a quarterback and hasn't signed anybody yet. And that's now his number one potential landing spot at that point. So, you're Miami and you're sitting there with this, and somebody gets the idea, let's make one more phone call to Cam Ward. And that phone call just changes everything. And it's fascinating how things happen sometimes. And, but this is a high impact situation because I've been looking at next year and I'm seeing a defense that has to replace a lot of guys, and it's a very favorable schedule. There's no doubt about it, which is a good opportunity for Cam Ward as well to put up big numbers, but it's a very favorable schedule. And but I was just wondering, how is it all going to come together? That the team was just not going to be good enough the way it was. And this changes that, because this guy is that potentially powerful of an impact player. So this changes the whole trajectory of the season, puts a lot more pressure on everybody, but it's good pressure. You want pressure to win big, because the alternative hasn't been so great here for a very long time. So to sum it up, Matt, I think that it's going to be very interesting to see what Cam Ward looks like at spring practice. He will immediately enroll in school this week and start working with his new teammates. And they will begin the offensive building with him as the leader moving forward here very, very quickly. So to sum it all up, I think that there's a lot here, obviously, for people to be excited about. And get your season tickets now, everybody, because the Cam Ward show is going to be arriving at Hard Rock Stadium next fall.
Yeah, look, the bottom line is there really are no excuses anymore. If this season doesn't wind up with 10 wins, then something's wrong, and Mario's brain may wind up being snapped in half. But right now, if you look at we actually have an updated depth chart.
Matt Shodell sets up the gauntlet, man.
Always, we have an
10
updated
wins. That's it. That's where the line is. 10 wins.
You gotta win. You gotta win, man. Anyway, we updated our depth chart. Cam Ward, believe it or not, is the first team quarterback. But as you go down the list, even on offense, where are the proven playmakers? Yeah, I understand Xavier Restrepo should get every single pass thrown in his direction, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He's really good. But you're looking at maybe Isaiah Horton, maybe Jacoby George if he's even back off some of these legal issues he now has.
JoJo Trader is going to get a chance.
Maybe, but again, look at Cam Ward, right? He's done it. You know what he is. So what I'm trying to explain to people like Gary is I want guys who you can rely on because they've already done it. I could name 10 different guys who are freshmen that could be great, but could is the operative word, So on offense, what I'm trying to tell you is the only proven people essentially are Xavier Restrepo, who will definitely be back. I mean, because I don't know what Jacoby was going to happen. So Xavier, Mark Fletcher, who was coming off a foot injury, where the getting information about injuries is really hard to do. But I don't think he's going to be full go for the start of the spring, potentially. And then Henry Parrish, who was just okay to me. So you really got two decent playmakers. Ray Joseph was a disappointment to me this year. I thought he'd be much more of a playmaker. So I don't know what he'll wind up doing next year. Tight end's been a disaster. I don't know if Arroyo will be healthy, if he's great or not. Everyone wants to say Elijah Arroyo is going to be great. Well, when he's actually played, he hasn't done anything production-wise. So yeah, he's another guy you can't say, okay, well, he's done it before. Can he be great? Sure. All these guys can be great, but he hasn't been. And then you have a transfer center. You have a returning starter at right guard, at right tackle, and at left tackle. And then you have a left guard situations to be determined, probably Matthew McCoy. So 2 new starters on the offensive line. When you look at it big picture, this isn't an offense where you're like, wow, look at all these different playmakers. It's like, okay, they had a really good freshman running back who's coming off an injury now. We've got to see how he winds up behind a different looking offensive line with one guy at wide receiver who doesn't even run deep routes for the most part. And that's your team. That's your team. It's 2 guys and now Cam Ward. And if they don't get the offensive line play that they need, if they don't get a second and third receiver who are consistently good, if they don't have tight ends who can at least block, I mean, Cam McCormick's blocking grade was the worst in the team, and that was supposed to be his specialty. If they can get a tight end that can block and receive and make plays down the field to take some pressure off guys, if they don't include and incorporate the running backs in the passing game, which they didn't at all this past season, this offense may not live up to its potential because you can only do so much as a quarterback if you don't have the talent around you. I mean, you look at
I think you're going to see the tight ends much more involved next year. That might be part of why they're thinking of going under center more.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, it's to be determined. But, Patrick Mahomes, for instance, no Tyreek Hill, receivers dropping passes all year. It's not the same offense that it could be. And if you're going to identify Cam Ward as a Patrick Mahomes type, you have to put the talent around him just like Patrick Mahomes needs talent around him. He can't just do it all himself, When you see the Kansas City offense, and I understand they beat the Dolphins in 0-degree weather, but towards the end of the year and for much of the year, actually, that offense did not look like a Patrick Mahomes offense looks. So, to me, it's still, you have to find those pieces. They still need another receiver in the portal. They probably still have some question marks to be answered this spring on the offensive line and a tight end, or they will have to get answers in the second portal window, which is why it's nice as another portal window. And then the offense should be humming, you'd have to think. But again, you have to answer those question marks. So we'll learn a lot this spring if we're actually allowed to watch practice, which I don't know that we will be. Maybe, please, Mario, let us watch Cam Ward.
Please, Mario, come on.
Begging you.
Yeah.
What are the chances he lets us actually see Cam Ward this spring practice?
All right. Well, we'll obviously be covering Cam Ward a lot moving forward, and all you hear is great things about this guy. That he's smart, that he's good character, that he's a leader. His trainers speak extremely highly of him. We have all that coverage on the website. Make sure that you check it out at CaneSport.com. If you're not yet a subscriber, we would love to have you as part of our community at CaneSport. So, jump on over and become a member. In fact, let me do this. Let me throw this little special code up on the screen. I'm going to offer everybody who's watching right now who is not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com. I'm going to offer you a special offer right now. You can get your first 2 months for $1. Use the code Canes1, and that will get you your first 2 months for $1. And you can come and enjoy the excitement that Cam Ward's going to bring to Miami football and join our great community of fans that we have at CaneSport.com. So that's going to do it for right now. For us, thank you once again for joining us. For Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman, and we will see you next time, everybody.